we see a breadth of different industries, different businesses. We see various different kinds of new solutions because of the kind of perspective that we get to have as consulting partners and working with a wide range of companies. And I think that's one of the greatest privileges and responsibilities of being a consultant.
Good morning, everyone. We are starting a conversation with my colleague, Jared Shoemaker. Jared is a principal at CG Infinity. Anytime we have a high visibility, complex project or program with digital transformation, there is a fight inside the company to have Jared lead it. So needless to say, Jared is very sought after and very effective in what he does. You've worked with some of the biggest brand as your customers. Now, we all know we are smart, but our customers have smart teams. So the question is, why do they need consultants like us? And the second part of the question is, when you get so effective at customer projects as a consultant, why have you not gotten to go and work from one of these big brands directly?
Well, thanks for that generous introduction. I appreciate that, Surajit. I think that the real value in consulting ultimately is perspective. Both strategic and operational perspective. That's really one of the things that we can bring as consultants to our clients. Even the smartest internal teams, they can get too close to their own processes. They can develop blind spots. They can fall into, I'll call it legacy thinking instead of groupthink, because it's not necessarily groupthink, but it is legacy thinking. There are ruts that develop in organizations, and it can be difficult to get out of those. And so as consultants, we can come in and we can bring fresh perspective. We can bring new and proven frameworks and introduce solutions that just probably hadn't been considered. And we can also objectively, constructively, help to challenge assumptions inside the organization. We see a breadth of different industries, different businesses. We see various different kinds of new solutions because of the kind of perspective that we get to have as consulting partners and working with a wide range of companies. And I think that's one of the greatest privileges and responsibilities of being a consultant. And whenever I'm a consultant, yes, I'm there to solve my one client's problem at that point in time. But over the scope of my career, I am helping to build and propagate better practices across multiple different industries. And I find that very rewarding and exciting.
Very fresh perspective, not just bound by legacy thinking. Very nice. One of the things that I get inspired and learn from you is how well you prepare for a client meeting with some amazing pitch decks, and you've been a inspiration to me. And every day I go for my client pitch, I always think about how would Jared do this pitch. Building very pertinent pitch decks to customers is a very powerful weapon. When did you realize that in your career, and how did you start preparing to be such a good client pitch deck preparation person?
Sure.
And the second part is, what advice you're going to give some of our colleagues who are trying to be on this path to become better at these areas?
Well, thank you. I got started in working on pitch decks for clients early in my consulting life as an associate consultant, and I had a couple of mentors and leaders who Frankly, I was the pixel pusher and the grunt doing the draft work for them on, all the different pitches that they were working on at the time. And I owe them a tremendous amount because I learned, I got the opportunity to get lots and lots of reps in working on a lot of drafts of a lot of different decks for different clients. And then I also got to come along and be in the room where it happened when the pitches actually took place. So I got to sit there. I wasn't giving the pitch, but I got to sit there and listen and observe and pay close attention to what resonated well and what didn't with the client. And we would even have debriefs every time. We would debrief what do we think worked? What do we think not work? Why do we think that happened? And so through those mentors, I learned, they taught me not just the fundamentals of great presentations like structure and clarity and visual storytelling. All those are very important. But they also taught me to focus on the psychological aspects of how people react to things and, knowing your audience, trying to understand your audience really well, building confidence in you as you go through the presentation, and connecting your material to the most tangible business problems that they have. And that's been the fundamentals of my approach since then. So for our colleagues who are wanting to develop this skill, my advice is to focus on three things. And one is knowing your audience as deeply as possible. And that is, who is going to be there? What is their background? What are their roles and responsibilities in their organization? Are they new? Have they been there a long time? What are the macro issues for the business that they're probably getting questions about from their leaders? So what's keeping them, like forming a persona to understand what's probably keeping them up at night, those kinds of things. Second is then leading with insight and not just information. Like you said, our clients, a pitch deck is there to show that we can connect all of the vast experience and information that we know and experiences we've had, but apply that directly and provide insight to their business problem and how we're going to help them solve that. So they don't necessarily want generic boilerplate information that can look really nice and there can be tons of detail and it can make you sound really smart objectively. But in the specific situation with the client, the insight is what matters, not all of the information. And then third is just practice relentless editing. And one of my favorite, but also least favorite things in the world is to show a draft deck to Pratik and let him tear it apart. Like, why did you use this font here, but this font here? Why is it organized this way? No, the information should follow this order. He is fantastic at providing that kind of feedback and helping me refine and edit to the point that it is. So those are the three things that I think you really focus on. Whenever you do that, you are building a deck and a presentation that builds your reputation with the client and solidifies that relationship.
We all know consulting projects are complex, highly demanding, mostly misaligned stakeholders. So many of us struggle to keep one project on track. How I watch you, juggling multiple projects and many times with different customers. And I see a fair amount of ease and calmness. Ease is probably calmness. Mm-hmm. As an external entity. Like, how do you do it and how do you not pull your hairs out?
Well, what's the old saying? It's like a duck, right? Duck on the water. Everything's smooth and calm above the water line and then paddling like crazy below the water line, right? Working with multiple clients and multiple projects is really about discipline, delegation, team development, and constant communication. And I've learned through trial and error and through the hard way, that delegation is definitely more than just task distribution, right? And, definitely it's matching responsibilities to skills, obviously, but it's beyond, but also it's matching responsibilities and skills with career growth goals and also potential, right? So not everyone who has certain career growth goals also has the potential to achieve those. And so you have to exercise judgment there. But whenever that becomes the focus and you're thinking through those things, then I can develop the team. We can give them opportunities. You can give people the opportunities to stretch, to exercise some independence, make decisions, and grow in a supported environment. That, I think, makes a huge difference in how I can build trust with a team and say, okay, I can trust you to handle this. If something happens, you can bring me and you can call me and I'm here. And then we also have relentless communication, just that there are regular checkpoints, there are backstops for issues. So nothing just is allowed to continue without a red flag going up. But beyond the internal side of managing those kinds of things, the external side, working with the client, is having clear, complete transparency and setting expectations very clearly as much as you can from the very beginning, so that whenever risks do come up, you've already talked about those risks, or you've also discussed the fact that there will be risks that you can't anticipate, and that you have put in place a process for how you're going to deal with those risks when they do materialize inevitably.
Clearly be very effective consultants, and you'll continue to do with that. But you are also a husband, you're a father, I would say that very involved father, and you're also a son. How do you juggle to be effective in every role? What kind of challenges and conflict they might pose with each?
Yeah, having a demanding consulting career and, middle school child and being married and having older parents now, there's always going to be a bit of a constant learning and constant growth. But what I think is that I'm a whole person. And so I want to be my whole self at work, at home, out in the community with friends and family and neighbors. And so it's not necessarily balancing as much as it is integration. But what that actually requires to be successful in practice is, to be successful in practice at that integration, what it actually requires is very serious boundary setting and protecting of time, so that if I put a client meeting on my calendar, that is an anchor point and that is protected time. I'm not doing something else at the same time as that, right? And so the same thing for whenever I put family time on my calendar, I put my son's football game on my calendar, that protects that time and allows me to have the boundaries so that these different things don't all bleed into one another and take from the other. They become integrated. And my wife and I have also implemented some rituals that we find help us be able to manage kind of the transitions and maintain the presence. We have a family ritual of walking with the dog in the evening right after work as kind of our transition out of work mode and into home and family mode.
Very nice.
Whenever we don't necessarily get to sit down and have a meal around the table as a family every night because we're busy and there are activities in the evenings as well. But when we do have, 2, 3, 4 times a week, when we do have family dinner time together, the phone, my wife and I, our phones go in a place where they can't distract us. We sit down to dinner and they stay there throughout the evening and roughly until it's my son's bedtime. And things like that really help us make sure that we're present and that we're managing the transitions well and maintaining those boundaries as best we can.
Fantastic. Not balancing, but integration. Very well said. Well, we're at the end, my friend. Thank you so much, Jared. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I enjoy working with you. So let's continue this.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Take care.